great. Well, I mean, it's one of my favorite places in Chicago. Love it.
Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, I was
really
so
quick,
excited.
I do want to say a hello
Okay.
message to anybody who's watching on the Facebook live stream. Welcome. A little bit trouble seeing this like I normally do on Facebook, so I'll have to adjust my window so I can get to the comments, but it appears that everything is going through correctly. So those of you who are watching on Facebook, welcome. I will be able to see how many of you there are in just a few moments. But in the meantime, welcome. We will get started in about 15 minutes, and we look forward to having a great event. There we go. Now I can get to it. And I see Paula has already commented and beat me. Says we're having trouble playing this video, so that's not a good sign.
So Betsy, how long have you been at 1871?
4 years.
Wow, that went fast.
About to start year 5. Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It went, in some days it went by really fast, and other days it did not.
Hello. Hi, Betsy.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good. Sorry if you were talking to me before I actually had the volume on this all turned on. I was sitting I was stuck in another meeting that ran really late.
No, I was standing over there in the corner while I was making Charlie dinner and all kinds of stuff. So no, I was not talking to you. So you missed nothing.
Okay, good. Yeah. I actually forgot that I'd already logged into Verbella by the time I was like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting in Verbella for 20 minutes and I turned down the volume.
All right.
How are you? Everything good?
Me?
Oh, Matt.
Oh.
Yeah, everything's good. The some reason Facebook Live producer always tells me that it's having trouble with the video, but if I'm actually watching the live stream of it on Facebook, it seems to be fine. So, you know, the joys of live production work.
Yep.
But anyway, I'll say once again, welcome to we seem to have people joining the Facebook live stream pretty quickly here. So welcome all of you. We're getting some people in the conference room now as well too. This is the open networking portion. So hello all, welcome.
Heather, do you have your mic on?
Hi, Marty. Good to see you.
Heather Bennett, I see you.
I see you, Marty.
Great.
What's up, Gabe?
Howdy.
How you been?
I like your hair, Heather.
Yeah, pretty good.
I had a hard time choosing.
How's frame coming along?
I went through a lot of stages.
Oh, we're chugging along. Got some big updates coming, as usual.
I was going to go as a redhead, and I changed it at the last minute.
Does he have flat or spatial on?
Kind of the opportunity to do that, right?
Probably have flat on.
Like that day, what do you need to project that day? So that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So it's so good to see you here today.
Hey, I letting you know I switched audio to spatialize, so switch it back before you start.
No, I saw, which means the people on Facebook are hearing us more than anything else.
getting used to all the ambient noise of other conversations.
Oh, okay. Good. I'll have to get used to that.
Yeah, it is.
It does make sense. Definitely the way you're set up. I think a bright time I talked to someone who's doing trying to figure out how to do something like this. And I'm fascinated with the idea of like, how do you connect together in a virtual space?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like there's so many different ways to do it in different environments, and you can get more and more immersive or do it like this, and the environments are continuing to get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah, I had 4 days of training last week, and it was all done on Zoom. And I got to tell you, 10 to 12 hours on Zoom for 4 straight days was a bit much. So this might be like a nice break from that.
It's kind of nice because you can be there, but be behind yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. I actually projected, because I knew I was going to be in training, I projected it on like a 75-inch or like a large computer or large screen, basically, monitor that like 70, so that each individual person was a little closer to life size when I was speaking to them. And then used a webcam so that I was looking directly at the screen. And I think that helped a lot, because I was not as fatigued as a lot of the other people who were in the group.
That was really smart. I never would have thought of that.
My chief tech, my CTO / husband suggested. Yeah. I do like your setup with your new office and all of your equipment. I think it was really great that you shared that, because right now, since we're all managing different ways of interacting, it's really important to share what works for people and what doesn't.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I learned is when I redid the office, I enjoy being here, and I look forward to getting into the office, and I look forward to the idea of I can have the shelving unit behind me, like a real life thing, or I can do the green screen on the green painted wall behind me and choose any environment I want.
Yeah, that was good design.
The desk works. I mean, I didn't think that I could sit on either side of the desk, but I can, or stand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's right. You said you got a desk that you could virtually standing.
Yes, I stand when I present, although I will not be standing tonight, but I typically stand when I present, and I stand sometimes just to get a little bit different feeling.
No, it's easier to project. Well, I mean, you're professional speaking, right? It's easier to project when you have the ability to stand and really open your diaphragm. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So should we go back and say hello to Gabe Baker?
Sure. I don't know Gabe, so
he's behind you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll turn around.
There's Gabe.
Hello.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so how long have you been at Virbela?
Oh gosh, I think 3 years.
And what is your primary role?
Oh my gosh,
Caitlin's here.
Oh,
hey
Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
How's everybody?
They make room in the circle here.
So Gabe, you do what?
I'm a product manager for a product that Virbela makes called Frame, which is kind of like Virbela, but it runs right from a web browser.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So
what about
it's not
you?
it's not app based.
It's not app-based, it's all browser-based, but you will be astonished at what the web browser can do these days. I promise you. I'd be happy to give you a tour of Frame anytime you'd like.
I would love it. I've seen some tours of other environments recently that are pretty intriguing. Do you know spatial.io?
Yep, I know Spatial. It's very, very, very good product there.
Yeah, so there some folks I know are using it, and some pretty awesome stuff. But I only saw a demo. I don't really know what they can do.
Yeah, no, there's, I mean, every week there's another kind of product like this, whether from a big, huge company that's entering the space or some little startup that's entering the space. So there's an abundance of riches, I think, to choose from right now.
So product management, do you have engineering or marketing background, or what's your background to do that?
Well, I used to be a Latin teacher.
Got it.
Yeah, no, it's been a winding journey from that to this. I don't even know like how it sort of came to be, but somewhere along the road picked up some technical skills, and now I'm kind of what they call a technical product manager, which is just a product manager who also does some development and kind of can interface really well with a development team. So, there's certainly some areas where I have a lot of growth to do, but I do what I can, and I'm learning every day. But yeah, I kind of just run the team that makes Frame, and we're mostly developers right now. We haven't done a real big marketing push. We're sort of starting to rev that engine up. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You know, your discussion about Latin makes me smile, because when I did an internship at Apple, when I was in business school, and
Yep.
they were famous for hiring people with philosophy degrees.
Yeah, I love that.
Famous.
Apple's always been very big on the
and then they would be like a technical sales support or something like that. It was fascinating to me, and I met some great people there.
Very cool. Yeah, Apple has always been really into kind of the marriage of the humanities and and science, and Steve Jobs was always kind of talking about that relationship and how you have to have people from kind of both sides of the spectrum kind of coming together and working in harmony to make really magical stuff.
Marty, that's such a good point. I
Okay.
Sounds good. Ooh.
I'm going to mute the audience. Everybody except for the people who are up on stage with me here. We're about a minute. Actually, we're at 6:15, so I think I'm just going to get started right here. I do want to make sure my presenters are up on stage with me. Let me turn around and see everybody's here, and I see them, and that's great. So, with that, I will say welcome. For those of you who've not been here before, this is VRAR Chicago. This is an event that has been happening for 5 years, relatively monthly for at least the last 4.5 of those 5 years. And the one thing I do like to say, the purpose of this event is our audience. We want to be here to help you guys move forward, to help you get your questions answered. That is the purpose of the event. For those of you who are here in the space with us live, for those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, we did used to do this event actually in a live, physical, present space for the first 3 years of its existence. We're approaching the 2-year mark in virtual, but hoping to get back to live in person soon. But again, the purpose here is to help you, learn about this technology and move forward. Now we have a really, really just great panel here tonight. And we do record these events, and we also make them available pretty much forever so that people can come back and watch them later if they have any questions. about the technology. This is a resource, and that's the whole point, is to make this available for people. So with that, we would not be able to do this without our sponsors. And so really quickly to see who's in the room, and I will start with saying thanks to our sponsors, starting with Bundle AR. I think I see Aaron in the room. There he is. All right, so I'll hand it over to Aaron.
Hello, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Just to give a quick background, as we all know, AR is changing everything, and our goal at Bundle AR is to make this technology accessible. What we've created is a web-based AR authoring platform that basically enables users like myself, people that are not technology focused, who aren't coders, to be able to design and publish their own augmented reality experiences. I think we have a quick video that will give you a better idea of what that actually looks like. Matt, if you want to go ahead and roll that.
Hey everyone, welcome to Forward. We are a new kind of doctor's office that's doing primary care.
I'm going to go with, it appears that there is some ads on that right now, so let's skip the video.
Got it. Not a problem. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to a great panel.
All right. Sorry about the technical difficulty there. Usually we do manage to get away with not having video issues, but it appears that YouTube is deciding to put ads on everything once again. So we'll worry about fixing those videos later. But in the meantime, sort of by chance, it kind of worked out that two of our presenters on today's panel happen to actually be from our sponsoring companies. So with that, I'll ask Betsy. I know I'm kind of throwing you on the spot here, Betsy, without a lot of warning, but if you want to do the intro for 1871 before your spot, you can do that, or I'm happy to talk about it.
Oh, thank you, Matt. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit in my opening. So why don't you give your version of it, and then I'll supplement you in a few minutes.
Sounds good. So 1871 is Chicago's technology incubator. I'm not entirely sure how many companies are based out of there now. I know it was 400 or so at one point, but it is the best place in Chicago if you are looking to start, grow, or launch a technology business. They're very well connected with Chicago universities. They're very well connected with industry and enterprises in Chicago. And like I said, since we do have Betsy here from 1871, who's going to be presenting today, I'm sure you'll hear much more about 1871, and I will cut my normal intro a bit short. Along with that, I'm gonna throw this again to Gabe. I know generally you talk more about frame, but you're here. Did you want to do Verbella's intro? Because normally Cam would do it, but he is not here.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Matt. Verbella, we make collaborative 3D worlds. We're kind of in one right now, and these can be highly scalable and customizable. You can have hundreds, thousands of people inside of Verbella at once. We make both applications like this that you download and open that can do really powerful things, and we also make browser-based 3D collaboration tools. One of them is the thing that I work on that I'll probably ramble on a bit more later, called Frame. But in any case, great to be having this event in here, and looking forward to the panel.
All right, thank you, Gabe. And with that, I do also have to thank a couple of our partners who help us market the event. They quite often help us find speakers. Those would be XR Women. I think we have at least a couple of the representatives from XR Women who are here this evening in the audience. IGDA, which is the Independent Game Developers Association, the Chicago chapter. 2112, which is Chicago's creative technology incubator, and VRML. But with that, let's go to the topic at hand, which is the future of work. And again, before I get into our first presenter, who will be Marty Constant, I did want to just go over the format of the event. So to learn the controls, I apologize for my birds that are deciding to be very, very loud right now. I apologize if that's coming through. But for those of you who are in the audience, because I don't know who's been here and who hasn't before, but we're going to learn how to use these features because it's going to be important when we get to the Q&A session. So at the bottom center of your screen in Verbella, there should be a raise hand button. So if you have never been to one of these events before, can you please raise your hand? Two of us who've never been to VRAR Chicago before. That's kind of impressive. A lot of repeats here. Okay, you guys can put your hands down. For those of you who have been here before, please raise your hand. A little bit of limited participation on this one, but we can put our hands down. The reason I say that, so during the event, what we're going to do, we're going to ask the audience to please, keep your mics muted. And during the Q&A session, when we get to the Q&A, we will use the raise hand feature, and I'll go a little bit more into how that's going to work when we get there. But first, we're going to have all of our presenters who are going to give just a brief introduction about themselves and what they do, and then we will get to the Q&A so you can get your questions answered. And up first, we have Marty Constant. So Marty, if you would join me here towards the center of the stage, I am going to bring up your slides picture in picture over to the right, which will kind of cover where you and Betsy are generally sitting. Come on over and join me a little bit farther, closer to the center, and then I will go mute myself and go away. Again, if you need me to advance the slides, just say next.
Okay, I am good, and I am in the center. My name is Marty Constant. I am a workplace futurist and the author of Activate Your Agile Career, and inventor about 10 years ago of the phrase career agility. And I came into this realm as a technology marketer, and then ultimately made the switch to career developer and workplace futurist about 6 to 7 years ago. So I help people in the career space translate their experiences into a visible, in-demand portfolio of skills so they can find the work they love. And on the futurist front, I speak on the topic of the future and agility, and I speak all over the world because we can do that now on these topics. So I work as a keynote speaker. So very happy to be here tonight and talking about the future. Setting my timer right now just to make sure I'm within my time period. So I'm going to go right into the slides then, if we can, advance the slides to the next one. And we're going to talk, the future is such a big topic, but what's important about the future is it's not really tangible unless you can bring it to the present. Next. So do you remember your first job? Raise your hand if you do. Super, next. And I remember mine. I started my career out as a designer, and this is what my design life looked like. I was at a drafting table and had one of those really cool lamps and worked in a tech company. Next. This is what life looks like today in my environment. I just updated my office over the holidays. I have a standing desk there, as you can see me standing there, and I can access this desk on both sides. I have a painted green screen wall. The entire wall is painted on one side. Next. And on the other side, I have a shelving backdrop, compliments of my husband and IKEA and a ring light and a webcam and all of those things. And I give most of my presentations standing up. Next. And of course, there's room for the virtual headset. Caitlin Krause is in the audience today, and she and I are in a book club where we actually use the virtual headset to analyze and experience some of the topics of the books that we're exploring. She in particular has designed some of these experiences for the group. So compliments of Caitlin, I got my very first VR headset about a year ago. Next. So your experiences and your story is unique to you. It is your workplace and it's your context of the future. I'm going to be talking really quickly about what the future of work is going to look like, what it's looking like right now. We might all think about Google Glass and Second Life and the things that transpired before this and wonder, is this really going to take off? but the future is designed by the creatives and the optimists. And it's about us designing what people want before they need it. Gabe's going to be talking about Frame today. It's designing something that you're trying to anticipate. He's a product manager, right? So he's trying to anticipate what's next. As Ryan Gill of the Open Meta Association says, the internet was built by developers and the open metaverse is going to be built by game developers. Next. And how we're doing this is through ushering in a range of fourth industrial revolution technologies, of which AR and VR and XR are part of that. So our workplace is very different today than it was from my standing desk all the way back then, in the way that we used to produce marketing and communications and design work. Next. So the question is, where is it that you do work? Next. And if you are accessible to the chat, do you work remote or hybrid or on location? So put R, H, or O on location in the chat. Okay, so we have a lot of hybrid, which is really the future. We thought it was unique 2 years ago, but that is our future. That is our present. We've brought that one to our present. Next. So embracing the future can get super uncomfortable. New technology, like all the technology that's listening to us in our homes and our workspaces, it gets a little uncomfortable. Maggie Smith said it best. If anybody in the audience has ever watched Downton Abbey from several years ago, when the technology of the telephone came into the house, she said, exasperated, first it's electricity, and then it's this telephone, and she was cringing and gasping in awe and horror of this new technology. Yet it was such a great piece of technology. Next. So how do we bring our future to the present? Next. I'm going to challenge you to challenge. In order to bring the future to the present, we have to be open-minded. We have to challenge your assumptions. We have to disrupt the current model, not just disruption for disruption's sake, but for the model for the usefulness. We have to notice the signals and the trends, and then we have to be willing to act. I call this challenging your DNA. Next. So let's start with challenging your assumptions. Next. So what are your assumptions about work and the workplace? And you are welcome to answer anything in the chat box. Any assumptions that you have about work, good or bad. Next. Some of the assumptions might be AI and robots are evil. The great resignation is going to continue. You must be a gamer to understand and use VR, XR. We did it this way last time. It must be the best way. Your jobs will be replaced by automation. Yet will they? Next. Let's look at one assumption. Work is a place. Looks familiar, right? Bunch of cubes, chairs and desks. Next. Yet work is also an idea. Next. When work is an idea, we can think about smart buildings, like the Edge in Amsterdam. It's one of the smartest buildings in the entire world. It's got 30,000 sensors in the building. They measure the temperature. They measure exactly the moisture content that is in the environment. They have things like they know where you live. They know what kind of car you drive. The building knows who you're meeting with today
and how much sugar you take in your coffee. This might feel creepy to some of you, the way you first felt when voice activation entered your homes. Your smartphone app lets you in the building. Next. Work gets done in the in-between spaces, the crevices, on a plane, on a train, on an automobile. Oh, and on the virtual platforms that we've all been using for the last few years. Some of the organizations are calling it one Zoom, all Zoom, whether you're at the office or not. Next. So if work is an idea and work is untethered from the place, what happens? And I'm going to skim through the rest of these. Next. 77% of you want remote work some of the time. Next. What will you do with the certainty of hybrid that you're already experiencing? Next. As Peter Diamandis says, in the next 10 years, we're either going to flex or we're going to fade. We're going to have more progress in the next 10 years than we've had in the last 100. Next. When work is an idea, it's flexible. When Netflix experienced the pandemic with the rest of us, they made certain within 1 week, all of their creatives had all of their equipment shipped to their home so that they could produce all of that valuable content that we consumed during that time. The work didn't stop because it was flexible. Next. When work is an idea, it is adaptable. According to the World Economic Forum, 85 million jobs will be lost to automation, yet these jobs will be replaced by 97 million new roles. However, you must be willing to do what it takes to step into those roles. Reskilling and upskilling are necessary, going to be required by 50% of all employees in the near future. You all have an expiration date on what it is that you do. Next. When work is an idea, learning is an experience. I mentioned some of the learning experiences that Caitlin Krause designed in the past few years. She's a virtual experience designer. I think about this, when I think about virtual reality applications, I don't necessarily think about gaming. I think about professional development. I think about collaboration. I think about using the headset to go to other spaces and to be on mountaintops, to talk and share ideas, to build and deepen our relationships. This is a phenomenal application of VR within the future of work, whether it's done at something like Verbella or in a more immersive experience in a platform, some of the virtual headset platforms. Next. So work in the future is going to leverage the technologies that we're all exposed to right now. It's where the ideas sing. This was Apple's rallying call when they first launched their new flagship store in Chicago, right next to the Chicago Tribune Tower. It was just a phenomenal idea to think about this phrase that this is where the future happens, where the ideas sing. Next. And finally, as I sign off here, do you want to be like Tinker Toys, which is a very cool developmental toy that's been virtually the same for about 100 years? Or do you want to think and embrace the future the way we do with Legos? Legos works in robots and automation and works with all the young people all over the world designing solutions within robots to automate a lot of these new functions. Last year, I think Heather Bennett, who's in the audience, has been a coach to one of these things. 30,000 groups all across the world design what the future is looking like from a technology perspective. Next and final slide. So I challenge you to think about your assumptions and to challenge them, disrupt the model, notice the signals and the trends that are happening around you, and take action. Challenge your DNA. And one more slide finally. As designers and creators, you have the power to shape a future workplace that gives people what they need before they know it. You'll do this by challenging your assumptions about the way people work and the very definition of workplaces and workspaces. And the result is happy, profitable organizations and employees defined by a personal, equitable environment. That's the final slide. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marty. Audience know how to do the clapping motion. If you don't mind returning to your seat, up next we will have Betsy. We're from 1871. Join me, and Marty can go. You're going to want to come a little bit closer to center stage with me, Betsy, because I do have slides over on that side. Thank you very much. And hear you. I will go.
I am trying to get there.
There we go. You're good.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Marty. I think that was terrific. I'm going to use your last slide as a jumping off point for a bunch of what I talk about in terms of how we are reshaping the experience at 1871. And I'll be careful of the word at, because I don't really care if people show up in person or not, now that we have all these tools to engage people all over the world. And so tonight I'm going to share a little bit about 1871 and the journey we're on. I'm not going to have a specific call to action like Marty had. I might be able to come up with one over the next couple minutes, but so bear with me. But by show of hands, how many of you know what 1871 is? All right. And Paula, have you, Paula, and it looks like Jaquise, have you guys been to 1871? I guess raise your hand. Yes?
Yes, many times.
Ben too? Great. Awesome. Well, for the rest of you, Matt, if you can go to the next page, please. 1871, and Matt did a great intro, and the VRAR Chicago team has been a tremendous partner for many years, and the Bundle AR team, of which there's some overlap with folks on the stage and folks in the audience participating, as a wonderful member company of 1871. We exist to inspire, equip, and support founders, right? Those people that may include some of you that have an idea, that want to see if that idea can become a business. Call those early stage founders. Growth stage teams or growth scalers, teams of those teams that have found product market fit and are starting to scale. And then innovators. Most of those innovators are at big corporate enterprises. And all of them are building or trying to build extraordinary businesses. And my job and my team's job every day is to increase the probability of success of everyone we're working with and shorten the time frame for them to reach that success. Go to the next page, please. Matt mentioned that he thought there were about 400 companies being built right now, and that was really a spot on number. We're at 430 founders, or these early stage founders that are between idea and product market fit. To be clear, 1871 is open. We've been open for the entire pandemic, with the exception of a handful of weeks from late March 2020 through middle of June 2020. But not everybody wants to come into the space. And so in a minute, I'm going to transition to how do you build off this theme of is work a place or an idea that Marty raised, and how do you create a sense of belonging and community and engagement if you're not together? And so we're going to come back to that. We've got 300 growth stage businesses. We did 3 acquisitions during the course of the pandemic, one of which is the Illinois Technology Association that brought us that growth community. And so in that growth community, think about companies like Relativity, Active Campaign, Cameo, Foxtrot, ShipBob, G2, right? These companies that are That's on the one end. On the earlier end, it'd be like a Replay, who's getting, lots of attention, but is in sort of Series A, and those other ones are Series C, D, and beyond, and then about 60 big corporates. Go to the next page. I'm not going to read through all these stats. We are a nonprofit, and so we measure ourselves based on impact. Some of the impact that we care a lot about is the number of jobs that were created by these early stage founders, which right now is just north of 14,000, which we estimate to be about $1 billion of salary impact annually. $3.5 billion raised from early stage alumni. This says 3, but the real number is 3.5. Our goal is to mirror the demographics of the city of Chicago. We are, and I know the audience here tonight, hello to the Facebook Live group, is well beyond Chicago, but we're trying to mirror the demographics of Chicago. We are at about 22% Black founded right now, 28 or 29% female, 10% Latin, and 17% other non-white. And so we are in early innings. We're getting closer to that goal. Go on, Matt. So the experience of 1871 has really evolved. So the handful of folks that said they have been there before know of us. If it was pre-pandemic, what happened, from the from column on the left-hand side of this page, giant blackboard that told you everything that was going on, certainly supplemented by a technology platform, but the blackboard was sort of the centerpiece, the water cooler, the place that people go in the building. Everything was synchronous, a lot of event-based engagement, certainly serendipity, right? Serendipity, big theme at 1871. Today, the mayor of Miami came by, and quite the day for the mayor of Miami to come to Chicago. For those of you that know, Chicago had a big snowstorm today. My son had a snow day from school, 8-year-old. He was with me. So my 8-year-old got to hang out with the mayor of Miami, right? That's serendipity, right? I don't know anywhere else to say it. And we've shifted now to more of a platform for learning, more of a network orientation. And a word that I like to use a lot is polysynchronous. This sense that you can come as you are. You can engage with us in real life. You can engage with us virtually on Zoom. We rolled out a private AR campus leveraging Virbela called 1871VX. That was through the blood, sweat, and tears of people like Chris Wren and Tom Packard and Matt Wren and other folks that are in this conversation. So with deep gratitude to that team. And you can experience 1871 on demand. And you get to decide every day how you want to do that. And we've got members now that span from Lagos, Nigeria, to Caracas, Venezuela, to all over the United States, to Manila, Philippines, and a long list of organizations that want to partner with us. You can go to the next page. And this is super hard. It's super hard to create a seamless experience across modality. And we don't have to land on here long, but what I'm trying to get my team to do and deliver and engage on is that there's different tools for different types of engagement at different points in time, but we need the full toolkit to be successful. Go to the next page. This is my team meeting. You can notice that I am actually there's a giant picture of me in the far left. That doesn't normally happen in my team meeting, that I have a giant picture of me in the room, but a team member was playing a joke and I happened to take a screenshot, and so there it is. This is our private campus. Looks very similar to what you're in tonight. Next page. And so if you marry these things up with this, our ability to deliver our integrated curriculum and mentors and entrepreneurs and residents and all the other perks that come along with being 1871, and a set of technology tools that create a seamless experience and opportunity to get feel included and have a sense of belonging no matter where you are, and a record of impact, and you put those things together, there's a whole bunch of organizations that we're starting to partner with. We onboarded a group from Dublin this week, a group from Amsterdam last week, and our goal is to be the and, right? Again, as a nonprofit, this is not an economic move for us. This is all about impact. That if 1871, whose focus locally has a local footprint, which is incredibly important, and this digital environment that can link locations anywhere, that collectively, if we lock arms and build out that global community of early stage, growth stage, and corporates, we can advance the world forward. And that is, my mission that I wake up every day thinking about is how do I help advance the world forward in partnership with all of these other organizations? How do I, to Marty's last slide, how do I get ahead of my community, the team, in creating the conditions for them to thrive before they know that those are the conditions that they might need to allow them to do that? I think I have one last slide, Matt. And so this is the emerging model, hyper local, right? Very important that you have a footprint, have a place to go in your local community, a group of people that you partner with, and then access to this digital community that includes experiential content that's both synchronous and asynchronous, and a really deeply engaged community. And so I have 26 seconds left. That's the end of my slides, but I don't have a specific call to action, with the exception of saying, if this is energizing to you, you want to learn more, you want to be in conversation with us about how we're making this happen, or if you have ideas on people that we should partner with, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm at Betsy@1871.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I will just add the point. Me personally, through several different organizations at this point, have been a member of the 1871 community since 2014. So, actually, approaching 8 years. And
we appreciate that, Matt.
I plan to be there as long as I possibly can, because it's great. With that, our next presenter is Anya Jablanowski, who has been big. I will say Anya has been a presence at VR Air Chicago events for quite a while. Where is she? She's over here on the side. And we're very happy to actually be able to feature you as a panelist finally. We found your topic, basically. So with that, I'm going to get out of the way and let you talk.
Thanks, Matt. So appreciate it. It was either this topic or cats, so I'm happy with either one. I'm just so excited to be, kind of facing the audience this time. Normally, I'm just like taking notes like crazy and listening to all the speakers, and just honored to be alongside all these great thought leaders and just leaders in our community. We could jump over to the next slide, please. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Chicago. I'm a first generation Polish American, and today is literally the anniversary, 41 years that my mom landed in Chicago. My dad came a couple weeks after her. They got married, and a couple years later, they had me and my brother. So thanks, Mom, for making that leap of faith. I'm a pandemic bride. I was supposed to have my wedding with Peter, who he looks like Einstein. If you're here in VR, he's in the back of the room. We were supposed to get married in Poland, and thanks COVID, ended up having a nice little backyard wedding. So that picture right there is in my parents' backyard. Classic COVID story. So Peter is a VR engineer, AR engineer. He's all about machine learning, and he's really kind of my why, my passion behind tech. He introduced me to all of these possibilities. I'm a new cat mom. He surprised me with a kitty right before Omicron hit. So that was kind of fortuitous to be strictly work from home for almost 2 months now. And I joined Insperity in 2016. I was not in the HR industry. I was always a recipient of human resources. And just kind of generally anytime I talked with clients, whether I was selling web development, content marketing, social media projects, people were always a common denominator. And I loved hearing business owner stories of how and why they started their business. And as Matt mentioned, I've been a proud supporter of VR/AR Chicago. Just all the multitude of topics, it just never ceases to amaze me. Next slide, please. So Insperity, we're a publicly traded company, $4.5 billion in revenue, specializing in human resources for small and mid-sized companies. We're based right outside of Houston, Texas, and have over 90 offices throughout the U.S. The purpose for our company, the nexus of Insperity, was our founder, our chairman and CEO, Paul Sarvati, felt it was too hard for small to medium-sized businesses to be successful. There were too many obstacles in the way, too many things in the way. To him, it's like being a plate spinner, spinning these plates all at the same time, trying to keep it all going. Paul thought, how could he improve the success equation for small to medium-sized businesses? And to Paul, that meant both the likelihood of success and the degree of success. That really became our mission. And so understanding what that life is like and how you can make it better led to the idea of being an HR department for small to medium-sized businesses and take away the regularly scheduled business interruptions of employment and that role of being an employer that many people are just not that well suited to do on their own. We have a little video that we're going to share with you.
We made the decision to close the office. We made the decision to move from a New York corporation to a New Jersey corporation. These are all very fast-track things that are happening. And along the way, I'm reaching out to my payroll person. I'm reaching out to my HR person, talking about what I'm going to need if we're all not going to be in the same city in the same state. What do I need to worry about? And they were there with the answers.
One of the challenges that Insperity has been great in supporting us in is that we are, while not a large company, we're geographically diverse in what we do from on the East Coast. So we're in 8 or more states.
So I'll just stand by for the next slide. There we go. I promise it's very compelling.
Give me a second, Anya. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to go to it on video. So hopefully everyone will hear it this way.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
We made the decision to close the office. We made the decision to move from a New York corporation to a New Jersey corporation. These are all very fast-track things that are happening. And along the way, I'm reaching out to my payroll person. I'm reaching out to my HR person, talking about what I'm going to need if we're all not going to be in the same city in the same state. What do I need to worry about? And they were there with the answers.
One of the challenges that Insperity has been great in supporting us in is that we are, while not a large company, we're geographically diverse in what we do from on the East Coast. So we're in 8 or more states doing business. And as recommendations and guidelines came out, not only did they come out on a federal level, they came out on a state level.
I always got really fast answers from Insperity. It made things easier in terms of just keeping up with all the different workplace type changes, and we're in multiple states, which makes it more difficult.
The HR backbone of ACG is entirely comes from Insperity. We literally use every single aspect and resource we can, particularly now that we are so dispersed. We are a virtual organization. We decided to close our offices because we're working so well, growing our staff again. But the primary reason we were able to do that is because of Insperity.
So shout out to Insperity's marketing team for putting together such a great video. I got goosebumps when I first saw that video towards the end of 2020, just knowing how much our team went above and beyond for our client companies going through all of this. And, when we think about the future of work, to me, the future of work is people, whether it's innovation, tech, it's created by people. That's why I love what I do. And so at Insperity, we have a couple flagship solutions that I'll just highlight quickly here. We have a full-blown website, so I encourage you to jump on there to dive in more for time's sake here. Next slide, please. So our workforce optimization solution is designed to help move your company ahead as far and fast as possible. This co-employment solution combines personalized service and a proprietary HR tech platform to provide an unmatched customer experience. And just between this slide and the next slide, Matt, you're welcome to jump ahead. Both of these flagship solutions, they're powered by great technology, but more importantly, they're powered by great people. I think it's fascinating that between when I started in 2016, a full-blown human capital management solution, which is attainable for small businesses, was kind of a nice to have, and now it's a need to have. And when everyone went quickly to remote, those that adapted early on and embraced a cloud-based secure solution, whoever their provider might be, they were definitely set up for success. And you know, the HR tech is definitely something that I'm passionate about and fascinated by, and just the resistance to technology, just in general throughout my career that I've been witnessing, is always something that intrigues me too. Because even now in my mid 30s, I'm also resistant to some tech, but it's embracing that, you know, Venn diagram of tech and people. If we could jump to the next slide, please. So I did Google the future of work as I was invited to speak on this panel today, just because I wanted to see what Google had to say. And this is actually from 2019, referencing an article. But the work itself, who does the work and where is it done? So very reminiscent of Marty's portion of her talk just now. Next slide, please. A quick, you know, glance backwards. So I like to call it the BC, before COVID. So for most employees, mental health was taboo. I would put on little events early on when I started here, and it was not a topic that was necessarily widely covered. Employers didn't necessarily want to talk about mental health. Expectation, of course, was to always be on site or in the field. Zoom was from the Mazda commercial, Zoom. And company values outweighed personal values. We couldn't necessarily bring our full selves to the workplace. Next slide, please. And something that we are really witnessing is now we've got the funk. I keep hearing, and I myself have said it over the last couple of years, you know, I'm in a funk. You hear people are saying they're in a funk, and that's kind of a generalized way of approaching where their mental health is at. So the Mental Health America is the nation's leading community-based nonprofit dedicated to addressing the needs of those living with mental illness and promoting the overall mental health of everyone. Their work health survey provides an opportunity to better understand the mental health challenges employees are experiencing during the pandemic. It measured the perceptions of over 5,000 employees across 17 industries in the US. And of those surveyed, almost 83% said that they feel emotionally drained from their work. Next slide, please. And of employees who strongly agreed that they felt emotionally drained from their work, 71% strongly agreed that their workplace affects their mental health. Next slide, please. Something that I'm really proud of at Insperity, we've absolutely embraced the necessity around well-being and mental health.
Lost audio. Anya, can you hear us? Audience, can you hear me talking? Matt?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep. No, we cannot hear.
Okay, how about now?
Oh, there we go. Wait, yep, we lost you for a second there.
Alrighty, I took off my fancy gamer headset from my husband, so hopefully the audio is okay on here. So this is actually a screenshot from the Insperity Premier portal where I log into to do all of my benefits, my training and development. Next slide, please. We also have a ton of resources around well-being. Next slide. Employee development. So we partner with Skillsoft. There's over 5,000 courses available, and to see the uptick of just employee engagement from our own employees, from our client companies, has really been pretty incredible. You know, whether people had downtime or they're trying to upskill and refine, or you know, it's the great resignation. Maybe people are trying to learn something new before they head somewhere else. But I think, you know, that's a huge thing to think about for employers, as well as, you know, what are we providing for our employees, because we all feel better when we learn, when we continue to grow. I'm being mindful of my time. I know I'm pushing up against the clock here, so I'll blast through the next few slides here. Next slide, please. So we have a great just wealth of information on Insperity's website. So I encourage everyone to jump on the blog page. But one of the hybrid tips that I want to highlight here is really acknowledging the human experience. You know, the commercial that we saw over and over, we're all in this together. That's something that we're going to have to continue thinking about as we're creating new technology for consumers and employees alike. Next slide. Betsy brought this up. You know, at 1871, there's that great experience with, you know, it's that serendipitous moment. It's the water cooler moment. And I kept hearing over and over on all these Zooms, still to this day, you know, and that's why employers want to get their people back in, right? You want that water cooler experience. Next slide. For me, honestly, we're for those of us that are actually here in Verbella in our avatar selves. This is a screenshot of me from their holiday party, and it was literally the best holiday party. They had DJ Jazzy Jeff. This is just in the open campus area. But I was squealing with joy, and I bumped into people I knew, and I met new people too. And it was such a cool experience. It was so different than just, you know, the Zoom fatigue that we've all been facing. I love this whole metaverse concept. I know there's a lot of different platforms. I've been a huge fan of Verbella ever since, you know, VR AR kicked off their first Verbella event back in 2020. And, you know, sometimes if I just need to like recalibrate, I'll go take a walk around their campus. It's a lot of fun. So next slide, please. So I guess I'll call it my call to action. I am just encouraging VR for all employees. You know, there's the virtual office and event space. I love hearing about what 1871 is doing here in Verbella too. The creativity and innovation. I have a few references if anyone's interested in just what other VR applications are out there for team building, mental health and well-being, training and development. And just a quick glance at the topic of social impact. Next slide, please. Something that employers really need to pay attention to. Today's talent cares about social impact. You know, college students or high school students are putting activism on their resume, and they want colleges to know how active they are in the community, what they're doing to make a difference in the world. 75% of employees will take a pay cut to work for a socially responsible company. 84% want their companies to help them identify ways to get more involved in their communities. And 83% say they would be more loyal to a company that helps them contribute to social causes. And I got this slide from Percent Pledges website, also part of the 1871 community. Bill Pollock is wonderful. His mission behind Percent Pledge is amazing, and they just have such a great platform for employers to do donation matching, give back programs, volunteer events. So shout out to those guys. I highly recommend connecting with them. And just my final slide here. Again, speaking to that activism in the workplace, there's lots of ways to get involved and, bring your team together. And I'm just really excited that VR, places like Verbella, the metaverse, it's a way for this collaboration and change to be created. So that's all I have for now. Thank you again, and looking forward to the Q&A.
Tanya. Up next. With the joys of bumping into people in virtual space. Up next, we have Gabe Baker. And Gabe, I'll be honest, I've kind of been waiting for the opportunity to have you join for one of these events. I'm really happy it's this one because frankly, you and I have been communicating for a couple of years at this point. Since pretty much I started using Frame almost immediately upon starting to use Verbella nearly 2 years ago. But with that, I will just let you introduce yourself and your do. And I know you're going to take control of the screen, so let me remind it right now to release ownership.
Okay, sounds good. It's great to be here, and I will go ahead and try to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and hopefully you can see my screen too, but let me know if you can't, and we'll go from there. All right, I'm going to talk about a few things in probably something of a scatterbrained way. I've been in the VR space for a couple of years now, always sort of working at the intersection of immersive technology and collaboration. When a lot of people now are thinking about the future of work, these are topics that sort of come to mind. Of course, discussion about the metaverse is swirling around very buzzily right now, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. And I'll also try to encourage kind of a healthy sense of, yes, excitement, but also sort of skepticism, and really encourage kind of, thoughtful asking of questions about a lot of this technology, as well as we sort of rush headlong into using it and embracing it. Okay, a little bit of background. So I work on a product called Frame, which is a Verbella product. I'm not really much of a salesperson. I'm not here to try to sell you on Frame by any means. If you want to check it out, check it out. If you like it, that's great. And I'm always happy to kind of give a tour of Frame. At a high level, we try to make the creation of social 3D spaces really easy, even for non-technical users. We're a big believer in the no code movement. The idea you can create something really special without technical skills per se, just by kind of dragging and dropping things around and doing lots of things without coding. It's easy to invite people in here. You just send someone a link, and they're in here as an avatar. Okay, when Microsoft has kind of started talking about this term enterprise metaverse as they talk about the future of work, and Verbella does too. But the term metaverse is really nebulous and is getting a bit strange in terms of the extent of different things it sort of means to different people. It's sort of this strange magical term where I think a lot of people are like hoisting their dreams of what technology should be, and they just say it's the metaverse, and then the metaverse is the future, and before you know it, every tech article out there is about the metaverse. A lot of these discussions are about crypto, because a lot of the popular metaverses are kind of foundationally bound up in cryptocurrency or blockchain technology. The one I have on my screen now, Decentraland, is the really popular one. You got to link your wallet and so forth. The concept of Decentraland, it's all about, look, there's this map that we have, and it's a limited real estate, and you you purchase land from them using cryptocurrency. And there's this sense of scarcity with the land. The idea of, its value goes up, more people are buying land, there's actually less of it out there, which is kind of interesting. In Frame, we kind of have the opposite approach. Like, what's beautiful about this digital virtual technology is that it's not like real land. You can have as much of it as you want. You can that big building, you can make it again really easily without spending more raw materials or buying the land from whomever. So there's some different mentalities around this floating around. When some companies talk about kind of the enterprise metaverse, it's not about using these tools for just like play. It's about, okay, how do we leverage them for work? Kind of like we're doing now. We're sort of holding this work-ish event, in the metaverse, so to speak, in a collaborative 3D space. And this seems interesting to me, but I feel like if we change these 3D environments to make them really work-oriented, that might actually end up taking a lot of the magic out of them. So I really am hoping that companies find a way to find a nice balance between, work and play, and making environments that aren't just really functional for the typical work activities that people want to do, but also keeping them really playful and not necessarily game-like, but just having that element of kind of whimsy and fun, I think would actually go a long way. There are a lot of people that use Frame for work. And there's a use case that I think might be relevant for the topic at hand that I want to give a quick bit of attention to, and that's how a particular company used Frame for like a work event. And the company was Trello. This was a use case that we shouted a lot about on social media. And Trello, they went remote during the pandemic, and even before it, they were really into remote work. But they had us build a digital twin of their New York City office. And then they had their employees who were all over the world, put on an Oculus Quest 2, and they held their annual employee offsite called Trello Together inside of a digital recreation of their New York City office. And this was really cool because some employees had seen the office before, and they were actually, able to give their colleagues a tour. Some people had never seen the office, and they were, some people were seeing it for the first time, others had been there, and it was this cool kind of moment. Now, a lot of people, and I'm kind of zooming into, I've just like plopped the 3D model on one of our websites. This was a really magical and special event for Trello, and they're just really, to a large extent, they're letting people stay remote, indefinitely, but some people will now go into the office and they'll have seen it for the first time in VR, which is kind of trippy. But an interesting thing about this, a lot of people comment, they say, well, why would you want to have a work event, or why would you want to have an event in the metaverse, in VR, in a recreation of your actual physical space? Like, that's so boring. Why wouldn't you have it in some fantastical, like, environment that doesn't exist in the real world? And look, I'm not dogmatic about this question. The way I see it, it's like what the client wants, the client gets, and that's amazing. But the truth of it is, office buildings that companies have had for a while have really accrued a lot of cultural history and company culture. I mean, in short, like these buildings have become meaningful to the company in a way that only a real life building can be. Up till now. So, there were things that were just really special about the building in particular that really made this a memorable event. Now, I think as a lot of companies now, they're just remote first to begin with, and they're like creating offices from scratch that are not based on real world spaces. They're not digital twins of existing spaces. It's like, actually, let's come up with what our office should look like in VR. And it's a totally new, maybe it's fantastical, maybe it doesn't follow the rules of physics, maybe it's on Jupiter, what have you. And that's cool too. And I think over time, those virtual spaces are going to accrue just as much kind of company culture as these actual real world offices. Okay, anyway, it's a cool use case. Random theory, you heard it here first. the WeWork thing was a debacle. How WeWork crashed. I think co-working is going to come back. It's actually going to be a big part of the future of work, and there's going to be co-working in the metaverse. I don't think anyone's really nailed this yet. We're going to make a play on this in Frame, and I'm sure 10 other companies will too. I mentioned this too. We're chatting with a few before this, but there's really an abundance of riches right now for tools like this. I think Caitlin's in the audience. She's like a real metaverse like traveler, over the years, and I'm sure she can attest better than I can. That like there are so many different tools out there, and it's not that one is just the best. I don't think it just really depends on your use case and what you're trying to do, and they're usually not mutually exclusive. You can fire up a few offices in a few different places. Matt, if I'm like going well beyond my time, you might just have to cut me off. I haven't been looking at the clock, but I'll try to wrap up here in a minute. Gosh, there's just so much to talk about, so little time. I do think co-working is coming back. An area where I really see VR reshaping the future of work is in product design. Like product design in VR is just getting absurdly, outrageously good. I think that's where like it's farther ahead than people even thought it would be now. And what's interesting about product design now is that some products are just being designed for the metaverse. It's like instead of designing a shoe in VR that eventually gets like actually manufactured in a physical space, there are like companies popping up, just doing product design for the metaverse. So yes, you use the VR tools to design the 3D models or what have you, whatever you're bringing into Frame. Here's a shoe in my Frame, and here's this other helmet. You can bring in whatever you want. But a lot of product design is just around making stuff for the metaverse now, making shoes for avatars, not actually even, manufacturing them, which is kind of interesting. VR headsets are never going to stick for all-day usage. I know some people are trying to make this a thing, like working in your headset all day long. I don't think that's ever going to be a thing. AR headsets are really going to change the game. Apple, rumored to be putting out their AR glasses for years now. It does look like this year might be the year. But that will get interesting if people have AR headsets on. I do think they'll still want to hop into VR for those meetings where you have that sense of presence and togetherness, because that's the beauty of VR right now in these meetings, in this conference hall, is that we have this sense of shared space. In AR, you kind of get your space back, like the digital layer is imposed on your view, and that's incredibly powerful, but you don't have that sense of co-presence with others in a virtual meeting. I'm sure some companies are really going to nail some kind of like co-located AR experience. We'll probably try it with Frame, but remains to be seen what that really looks like. So I do think there's still going to be a real special niche for like fully immersed meetings with a sense of togetherness. And then finally, some closing provocations I'll sort of end with. There are a lot of people who think this stuff is really just a novelty. All this metaverse stuff is garbage, and we're going to go back to using Zoom in a year or two. People are just so sick of using Zoom. I heard people rightfully complaining before this that, look, 12 hours a day on Zoom for a couple days and you're just toast. It's totally true. But part of me wonders, like, if this metaverse stuff came first before video chat, and all of a sudden now video chat came into existence, I'm pretty sure that people would be scrambling to use video chat almost all the time. And that's just something that I think about sometimes. Like, are we just rushing towards this stuff because we're sick of Zoom? Is this stuff actually functionally so much more powerful than Zoom that it's gonna stick? And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I've got my hunches, I've got my theories. I really liked what I heard from a previous speaker about how the future is designed by optimists. That's totally true, and I'm 100% on board. I'm a believer in this space. At the same time, I'm a little bit hesitant at the kind of the frothiness at which people, like, the frothiness is the wrong word. The unreflective embrace of this technology by so many people, I'm a little bit concerned about. I actually really appreciate a healthy sense of skepticism and questioning about this new stuff as we are building it, to make sure that we're building it just in a thoughtful and reflective way, not just building it because it's new and cool, but building it because we think it solves real problems and that we're thinking about the problems that arise because of the technology too. Okay, I'm going to shut up. I'm going back to my seat and looking forward to questions.
You got to release the screen too if you're going to do that. Thanks, though.
Okay, I'm going for the release.
Thank you, Gabe. And with that, Gabe is our last presenter, so we're going to get to the Q&A portion. So give me a couple seconds really quickly to just kind of go over how the Q&A is going to work. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, we do encourage you to participate in the Q&A as well. So I'll leave that slide up. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually ask all of the panelists to please come and join me standing somewhere close to center stage. I will make the screen that is the screen share right now on Facebook go away in a moment. What we're going to do is this, this is the part where we say, this event is for you. This is for the audience. We've had 4 people here that have talked about their vision for the future of work and what they've seen and where things are going. And we want to be able to answer your questions. The whole point. We do this for the audience. This is not, this event is not here for the presenters. It's definitely for the audience. So with that, I'm going to take the picture-in-picture away on Facebook so that everybody on Facebook can see as well. On Facebook, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat and I will read them into the room. We do, we're fully aware that you guys have a little bit of a delay, but we'll try to keep it, I try to keep things in order. For those of you who are in the room, if you have a question, what you will do is you will press that raise hand button. When you press the raise hand button, I do get to see basically the order. I can sort by the order in which people raise hands. So please raise your hand, and if you have a question, keep your hand raised. And I will call on you. When I call on you, you can open your mic, lower your hand, ask your question, then mute yourself again, and we will toss it. You feel free to ask a question of any one person in the panel here, or several of us. I'm kind of looking at the video. I would hope you guys can kind of just fan yourselves out beyond me here. Looks pretty good. It looks like I'm gonna ask actually at this point if we can move a little bit farther this way, just so that the people on Facebook can see us. And with that, I'm gonna see. I'll throw it out there and ask who is gonna be the first one to ask. Heather.
I get this question actually is based. I think Gabe may have a good answer for this, maybe Marty. Gabe, what you just said about the connectivity of being on a Zoom call versus being in this space, what do you think is going to be the tipping point for the virtual spaces like this so that you can get that sense of being able to read the person? When you're looking at a person speaking on Zoom, you can at least see signs and telltale ways that they're looking, or the way their facial expression's going, or the sound. I mean, obviously the sound would be similar, but what do you think it's going to take, given your concern, for this type of space to have that level of connectivity in which someone feels like they're making a connection, especially, to Anya's point about, what groups of people are going to be using this, and what's their level of comfort in this?
Is it okay if I just jump right in, Matt?
Yeah, please do.
Cool. So that's a great question, Heather. And so in Frame, the way that we sort of try to straddle this is we actually just let you throw up your webcam kind of next to your avatar. I think there's a little bit of a psychological strangeness to that. You're kind of wondering what to pay attention to, like someone's webcam or their avatar. And as you move your avatar around, your webcam just sort of comes along with you next to your head. Some people are actually doing this strange thing where they swap your avatar head out for your webcam if you turn it on. I personally really don't like how this looks. There's something weird about the real head of someone sort of on their avatar. I do think some interesting developments are coming through the pipeline on mapping your facial expressions to your avatar, which kind of can really make your avatar be a bit more lifelike and really convey that sense of facial, those subtle facial gestures that we all make that really add a really rich layer to our communication. And on the other hand, I think one of the reasons why people are sick of Zoom is because that's always part of the picture, and that you have this sense of having to be like on in a really active way because that people can see your face. So It's a good question. I don't have great answers. I do think we're going to see some pretty cool technology that will map those expressions to your avatar so that maybe you can get the best of both worlds. No video on, but still really rich communication through the avatar face.
Marty, it looks like you got something to add to this as well.
Yeah, I do. I've been studying on this, and I really think we can look at technology that's used in Pixar and the way that we look at how all of this technology is making things so much more real, and it looks like people and the expressions we make. So I don't have the technology solution for it, but I do know that in the past, if everything has just gotten better and better and more realistic. And I'm confident that this is where it's going to be headed.
Something I would just like to add, I like to say that my generation is in this like perfect crux of the Venn diagram. I grew up analog. Sure, we had the TV, but we didn't have a computer until I was in middle school. I didn't have a cell phone, and we all know what kind that was. It took like a minute just to write one sentence to someone. They weren't smartphones yet. Had to get a job to pay for that. So the limitation that I had growing up, I'm really like that last generation where we grew up pretty much analog, and then we transitioned into computers. I graduated DePaul in 2008, and in '06, I wrote a paper on the implications of social media, and my consumer psychology professor had no idea what I was talking about. Like, it was so over his head, I had to explain to him what Facebook was, what MySpace was at that time. And nowadays, I don't have any kids, but I'm like auntie to a whole bunch of relatives and non-relatives, and all these kids are, before they even hold a crayon or a marker, they're holding a smartphone, they're holding an iPad. They are just ingrained with this technology, and they don't know a life without it. So I really like to look back and look at all, these future innovators that, are this is just so normal to them. And I'm just picturing, in another 10 years, it's just going to be second nature for the adaptation. And, I think the older generations might be resisting a bit, but especially as the younger generations are kind of imposing this on grandparents, now there's a lot more communication through Zoom and Skype, especially versus like 3 years ago. So it is something that I'm excited about and also terrified.
On that, you actually brought up a good point, and it relates to a question. Jacques, I see you have a question here. I've got to go to Facebook. There's two that beat you from Facebook that I'm going to get to really quickly. And honestly, one of them is very related to what Anya was just saying. From Francis, he's basically saying, if the world does adapt the metaverse for the future of work, how will it impact our current workflow? Not everybody is a technology adopter. How can we help people to adjust their workflow to meet these new environments and maintain productivity and make sure that people don't get left behind? Which is what you were kind of just speaking to. So I don't know if you want to go on that, or if someone else on the panel wants to take that first.
I mean, there's been a lot of conversations too, just around, digital inequality. I've tuned into a lot of talks just around, connectivity and simply just not having access to the internet around the world or even within the US. Kids, when they were in that remote learning mode, some schools are still, but there's a lot of families where they only have that one device, or they don't have a laptop at home and they're using a smartphone. So it's also, back to the activism side of it. What can larger companies do? What can we all do to bridge that digital divide within accessibility?
So I actually really kind of want to hear Betsy's take on this, because with 1871 and the way you've been reaching out to a lot of different communities, not just across Chicago, but around the world now.
Yeah, Matt, I mean, I think, I agree with everything that has been said. I mean, I think our job is to make sure that um, we create the conditions for people to trial, part of the rollout of the AR campus, right? Let's get people trying, let's get people easing into it. I think the same sort of phenomenon is going on in Web3 right now. Lots of energy, lots of excitement, but very difficult to do, and only 3% of population has a crypto wallet kind of thing. So I think my team's job is to create learning opportunities, put the experts in front of them, like Team VR AR Chicago, and do a lot of trial on our own, so that we are in a good position to kind of lead the way, at least for.
Okay, Jacques, thank you for the patience waiting as we're getting through Facebook people. Did you want to ask your question? I apologize if I'm. You unmuting, but we are not able to hear you. So what I would suggest is if you could please type your question in the chat and we'll read it that way. Are we doing that? While you're typing, I'm actually going to read another one from Facebook that I think is just going to be a quick question. This one's from John for Anya. The slide on social impact, he's curious as to what age group you found that the new talent is more interested in social activities.
So which age group is more interested in the social impact?
You had the survey question up there that had the percentages of people that would take a pay cut for jobs. There was like if you had information about the age groups for that.
Yes. And actually, if you want to email me directly, I can send you that full report, because there's like 18 questions that are wide spanning. So it gives all the demographics for the age group, the income, different industries.
So John, that's John from Facebook was asking that question. I know generally have contact information for everybody who's on the panel on the webpage for the event, so you should be able to connect with.
Okay, great.
And send her an email or send her a LinkedIn message, because I know we do have. I'm watching Jacques type this question, and hopefully it'll be done soon so we can read it. In the meantime, another question from Melanie. Oh, that's a good one. How do you think the HR role is going to evolve in the future?
So I actually found a really great article from Harvard Business Review. Again, happy to share this link, but it's 21 HR jobs of the future. And very interesting. So the graph is from 2020 to 2030, and it references level of tech centricity and the year. So kind of going towards the end of the timeline, 2030, a VR immersion counselor is something that they're predicting, which obviously for VR AR Chicago is great. I love that concept because there's companies like Praxis Labs where they're using VR for kind of giving you an opportunity to walk in someone else's shoes. It's diversity and equity training that you do in a VR headset. So these immersive experiences are wonderful, and to have an actual title of a VR immersion counselor, I think will be inevitable. That's more along the lines of like 2028, but there might be a more rapid approach towards that. There are titles coming out in the future that are under the chief purpose planner. And I think that's really interesting too. So helping employees find their purpose within their organization. We saw the rise of the chief people officer. That was kind of more of a rare title, or even chief diversity and inclusion officer. You would come across those infrequently 5, 10 years ago. And just the uptick of that has me really excited. And there's actually, Marty, you'll appreciate this, there is a future of work leader, and that's slated for more of like a 2023-2024 timeline.
Oddly enough, Marty actually asked to add to this, so I'm going to let her jump in on that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I write and research about the future workplace and what it's going to be like in this regard. And one of the things that I read today was Claude Silver. Some of you may know her. She is the Chief Heart Officer, CHO, at Vanier Media. And her purpose, her why, is to understand the heartbeat of the 1,000 people that she engages with within her organization. These are the types of remote only organizations. And I think this idea of understanding what it takes to communicate with people in using your power skills, your emotional skills in a way like never before is going to be critical. I loved the idea when Ani was talking earlier about the great funk in her presentation, and that there's only a way to get around this, and it is going to take these really excellent communicators. So I think if I were to say one thing that the generations graduating from college now is one of the most viable skill sets is communication in a remote world that is beyond what they're currently doing.
So I'm going to read Jacques' question here because this is a good one, and there's another question from Facebook I'd like to get to, but honestly, I think a lot of this will get answered because I'd like the whole panel to kind of chime in on this one at a time. So let's try and keep our answers relatively quick. But I'd like all four of you to answer, which, several companies have gone hybrid or completely remote, or in Betsy's case, they've gone virtual. How can companies maintain a positive workplace culture, and how will mentorship of young employees impact a company's bottom line? Or does this will be too hard to accomplish outside of an office? And this gets to another point that somebody private messaged me, and it's something that's come up, and it's come up very often when we've talked, as VRAR Chicago as about using virtual spaces for work. And I saw somebody represented it in their presentation, the water cooler, of just the types of random connections that you come across when you work with people in a physical space that can't happen on Zoom. And, in a virtual event, in a place like this, it does happen, but it gets to that same point of how do you keep a positive environment, and how do you types of random associations that can take place and just spark a new idea, a new form that can take place in virtual environments like this. It's much harder to facilitate in an environment like Zoom. But I'm going to kind of call on you guys one at a time to answer this question. Again, if you have any question about what the question is, it's typed in the chat from Jack here, or Jackie. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. But let's go. I'm going to call you one by one. Let's start with Gabe here.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Obviously, this is one of the great things about these virtual spaces is that they're persistent. With a Zoom call, the general sense is you're in and out. There's no sense of, let's like hang out after the Zoom call to kind of bump into people. But the challenge is sometimes just really getting people to embrace that culture of like just being in the 3D space, even when they're not having a scheduled meeting in there. And that can be a tough adjustment, but once they see other people doing it and they have those few serendipitous interactions with their colleagues, I think it really can help to cultivate that. And then on the other side of the coin, we want to make sure that these spaces don't just become kind of like corporate surveillance zones that just let managers like make sure that their employees are working because of their presence in some 3D environment. So just one thing to keep an eye on.
Matt, are you ready for this? Or are we?
But yeah, I'm gonna call everybody one at a time on this one. The same question. I'm just like, I kind of want to hear everyone's perspective on this one.
Did you hear mine there, Matt? I thought that I answered.
I heard yours.
Okay, cool.
So I was gonna ask Betsy to go next. I'm kind of looking at the screen and just going down the line. So.
Okay, I think this is one of the most important management challenges of generation, and it spans from how do you keep things equitable, meaning so 1871 is hybrid. People are in 3 days a week and remote 2, but they're different days. And how do you make it so that if you're not in the office when things are going on, that you're not forgotten about, right? How do you constantly be bringing people along? How do you, like, what are the new underlying processes, tools you've got to adapt? It's super hard. I mean, this is part of why we invested in this technology, to exactly what Matt said, although frankly, we have not really figured out how to take advantage of it fully yet. And so we're working on that. I think it's extremely challenging for brand new employees coming out of early tenured employees coming out and getting your footing. If you don't have more of a face-to-face experience. Now, face-to-face could be as an avatar, right? But it's not Zoom. This is a problem. I think about this problem every day, every week, of how I'm shaping my team, how I'm shaping the culture of my team, how I'm shaping the culture of the community of 1871, how we're creating opportunities for engagement in all different formats, all with this sense of belonging at the center. And my obligation as the CEO of the organization to build a really strong professional development opportunity for everyone on my team. It's much harder now than it was, and so I don't have a great answer for you, except that we're trying a number of things, and some things are working, and some things we're learning from and getting better at. But this isn't. There is no silver bullet here.
I could jump in if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
So just kind of things come to my mind as well. So one thing, just the uptick of remote hiring that we saw over the last couple of years, and it's not going to stop, once we're fully back in the office or fully embrace the hybrid. Companies are accessing talent in parts of the country or even parts of the world that they previously didn't, because once they were in that only brick and mortar mode, proximity is your limitation for your candidate pool. Once employers really opened up the whole applicant flow to people, in Nebraska or Iowa, if you're a downtown Chicago company, I think that is also shaping the culture. And then, of course, it's relying on print tech to keep people engaged. But that's just something that makes me think, employers will be more and more motivated. And I love to see that you're saying, it's something that you think about every single day. Because it should be something that employers are thinking of every day, and actually acting on it as well. So you're setting such a great example in Chicago and beyond. The other thing that comes to mind too, I love that you asked about mentoring young employees and impacting a company's bottom line. So very much so, it's a positive, it highly encourage, to mentor that younger generation, but also role reverse. Let those younger employees mentor the leadership team or people with more tenure within your organization, because their high school experience, their college experience, their life is so different, and it is so connected. The way that they communicate, the way that they receive and process information is very different. I mean, I'm sure if you did brain scans of, this generation versus like the boomer generation, we're wired differently at this point. And I think it's super important to not only invest in mentoring that younger generation, but also, having the younger employees share their wealth of knowledge.
Marty, do you have something to add to this one also?
I do. I think the word here is, if we were all 100% in a virtual environment forever, it's not going to be as positive. We need a blend of in-person. As Betsy said, we need to have at least the option of a hybrid environment. So I think this is great. We're always going to have distributed teams. We're always going to have people working, programmers that might want to work 100% remote, but to have this option of hybrid, number one. And then number two, this idea of mentorship. I talk a lot about mentorship, and what I've discovered is people wait to be asked, and they don't feel included if they don't get asked, as if that's what it's all about. All it takes is a tap on the shoulder in one direction or the other to get it going. And I'll give you an example. I was on an audio only event today on LinkedIn. They just launched that option. And I met someone who specializes in, there's maybe 20 or 30 of us on there. And I met someone who specializes in getting people set up on LinkedIn live training. And he wanted to learn more about long form writing and how to gain traction in that way. And I wanted to learn more about LinkedIn live successful events. And so we've got a meeting set up for this week. I think this can happen internally in organizations as well as from a disparate group of people like we had today. So I think the operative word for me is inclusive. All it takes is tapping on the shoulder, and then you can do this all across the world, and you can talk about meaningful topics. And finally, I would say that it is about giving everyone access to leadership development programs. And this can be online. It doesn't have to be in person. This can all be in the virtual environment. And when you get in these leadership development exercises, it's kind of intimate and you get to know people really well. So if you put in intergenerational people in those exercises, cross-functional across an organization, you can do that now, and you couldn't do that before. That's all I have to say for now.
Yeah, I know we're running up against the clock here, so I'm gonna call an end to it. There is one more question from Facebook, and I'll just throw a quick answer to, which I'm going to answer this one myself, is just because this is an opinion. Is, what do you see as the predominant use cases in an enterprise standpoint for VR meetings? And I'm going to say it's a judgment call. You can do meetings like this in a VR instance. We've done one-on-one. I know Anya and I actually several months ago just did a one-on-one interview in an office and it's actually in a Verbella shared space. And I've had business meetings with the VRAR Chicago team, and 4 or 5 people talking to prospective clients or panelists. So, I don't think there is one type of meeting that is better or worse to have in a VR space. I think it really just comes down to the audience. But with that, I do want to say thank you to this panel. It's been amazing. Don't leave yet, by the way, for those of you who are not done yet, because ultimately one of the most important things about this type of event is what we're about to get to right now, which is in fact the open networking. And where I'm going to explain how that works in just a moment here. But before I do, go and see. I don't see. Oh, there we go. If I have the upcoming events. So first of all, thank you, panelists. I will. You guys can return to your seats for a few seconds here while I finally close up the event, and then I'll make the seats go away and talk about how we go into open networking. Again, apologies for us running late, but it was a great conversation, so I wanted to let it run. But with that, our next month's event, we were hoping, and I know we announced this, in December, I want to say that we were going to be getting back to in-person events with the rise of Omicron and now stealth Omicron. We have decided for everyone's kind of health and safety that we are postponing our return to physical in-person events at 1871. We have not yet specified exactly when it will be returning, but we're constantly going to be monitoring the health situation and the situation with the pandemic. And we'll let you know. But with that, we did have to change our March topic. So our March topic is going to actually be a return to one of our favorites and most populars, which is training. It is, training does tend to be one of the most, one of the fastest adopters of the training industry of immersive technology, virtual reality, and augmented reality. The March event will be coming on the heels of, I think there's three different major training conferences that are taking place over the next 3 weeks. I think Training Magazine has their conference. Game Icon is coming up. ATT, the Association for Talent Development, is actually next week. I know because I'll be presenting there. Magazine has their conference. Game Icon is coming up. Marty, I'm going to mute you. Actually, I'm going to mute everybody. Back. But with that, we hope you can join us next month. The way this is going to work when we go to open networking, I'm going to do a couple of things. Well, the first one I'm going to do right now, which is I'm going to make all those seats that you are sitting out in the audience go away. The next thing that is going to happen is I'm going to, shortly after I close this event, and I will be turning off the live stream shortly after I do this as well, is I'm going to make what are called private volumes appear. So on the floor, you will see blue circles. If you are in one of those blue circles, you will only be able to hear and speak to the people who are in that blue circle with you. With this many people in the room, we know that, essentially a lot of conversations can start happening. And if a lot of people start talking over each other, we want to kind of have this as a way that people can talk and, isolate a couple conversations so there can be multiple conversations going on at the same time. But with that, I will say thank you again to each of my panel members. I will say thank you to all of you who came out to the virtual event and joined us in the virtual space here in Virbela. And I will also say thank you to all of those who joined us on Facebook Live and stuck with us. And even I will say thank you finally to those of you who are going to be watching the recording of this stream after the fact. Once again, we are here to network. The point of this is to help you take your step forward. If you have a question and you didn't feel comfortable asking it, that's perfectly fine. Feel free to approach us one-on-one. Feel free to reach out to one of the panelists. All of our contact information is available on the website. Ask questions. Let us help you move forward however you need help. And with that, I'm going to make the private volumes appear right about now. So you'll realize, again, that you're going to be hearing only the people who are in the volumes with you. They are there. 3, 2, 1, now. That, I'm also going to close those of you on Facebook Live. Thank you again for joining us. You'll be seeing the still frame go right about now.